Hi, Supernal viewers. Thank you for joining us for another wonderful interview, spectacular, with the very amazing and extraordinary guest that we have today, in Dr. Sam Osmanagich. And Dr. Sam, as we like to call him affectionately, is here with us today. And we're going to be discussing pyramids around the world and creating, a global legacy of lost civilizations. So, welcome, Dr. Sam.
Hello, Priya. I'm very happy to be with you, and thanks for such a nice introduction. And I'm really excited to talk about the pyramids, my favorite subject.
Yeah, so Dr. Sam has, he's a researcher, he's a scientist with a doctorate in anthropology, as well as an enormous archaeological project, which is the Bosnian pyramids, the Bosnian Pyramid of the Sun and the Ravna Tunnel complex, and all of the other pyramids and tumuli that he's discovered around that area. And Dr. Sam, how did you get into this? What was the thing that drew you to pyramids to start with?
I've been researching pyramids and megalithic sites for the last 40 years, and I have concluded that almost everything they teach us about the ancient history is wrong. The origin of man, civilizations, and pyramids. Now, it took me more than 40 years to get this conclusion. A lot of travel, reading, writing, thinking, comparing, talking to the people. You remember in our times, when we were teenagers, if you wanted to find out something about the subject, you had to read a book. Today it's different. Today, with Google and internet and AI, you simply ask the questions and you get the answer. But then people today live on the surface. They don't go deep. But a few decades ago, once you read one book and another one and another one, and as a teenager and in my 20s later on, I was reading 100 books per year from different topics, from philosophy and economy and history, psychology and science fiction and all other subjects. Somehow the history was the most interesting for me because I could see a lot of gray areas. I was not happy with the answer that the official mainstream history, archaeology, anthropology was giving us. So once I started traveling in my 20s, and especially later on in 30s, 40s, I realized that really what they've been telling us is so wrong. And usually they describe just the last cultural layer. And official science do not have the answers to the major questions like who was a builder of pyramids and megalithic sites around the world, when they were really built, how they were built, and what was the true purpose. So even though I've been having two careers in my life, both careers are supporting what I really love to do. My first career, of course, is research and science and travel and book writings about the topic. My second is business. I've been having businesses in the last few decades, and that allowed me to financially support what I love to do and to stay independent. Financial independence, in my case, meant independence when it comes to the conclusions. And plus the project that you just mentioned, the Bosnian Pyramid Project, which has become the most active archaeological site in the world, was also financed mostly from my personal funds. So when you do not rely on government funding, then you have a freedom to tell what you see and to expose your conclusions. So I would say, to answer your question, the major thing was it was the most interesting subject for me, the history, archaeology, the ancient civilizations, and especially pyramids, because pyramids could be found all around the planet.
So, Dr. Sam, you visited an extraordinary amount of pyramids across the world. around how many have you, or do you know exactly how many? You probably know exactly, don't you?
Yes, they've been telling us that pyramids are being built in Egypt and Mexico, and that's wrong. Literally, they were built on all 6 continents and maybe even on the 7th one, on Antarctica. Asia, we have more than 250 pyramids in the central Chinese province of Shanxi. 20 of them, the oldest one, they are the biggest and built from the superior materials, sandstone and granite. And the 230 smaller ones were built from the mud bricks, which is the inferior material. And the most recent ones were built from 2,300 years back, from the rule of the Emperor Qin until 1,000 before present. Some of those pyramids they've been excavating, and they did find some cultural remains like artifacts from those periods. They even found some skeletons of generals and princesses. However, the biggest one, the oldest one, those that are high 60 or 66 meters, they have not been touched because Chinese archaeologists do not have permission from the government. When I was having a lecture at the Archaeological Institute of Xi'an that actually perform all the excavation in the province, they told me that the government told them that they will not get a permission to dig for another generation, which is 25 to 30 years. Why? Because the oldest pyramids are 12,800 years old. That completely changes the Chinese history. They've been teaching the people there that Chinese history is about 5,000 and advanced society and the Chinese state is 2,300 years old. Now, because of pyramids, they need to change that. And then if we continue throughout the Asian continent, pyramids in Cambodia. Now, of course, we have Angkor Wat with the pyramidal temples, but the true pyramids are to the north. For example, Koh Ker, beautiful step pyramid. They're saying it was built in the 10th century by the general who left Angkor Wat. Wrong. It was built much, much before that. And then Indonesia, several of them, but most exciting is a site in West Java called Gunung Padang. Our friend, Dr. Danny Hillman, discovered the pyramids there, which is, after very careful examination and radiocarbon dating, it is dated to 27,000 years, which is radiocarbon date, meaning that calibrated date or calendar age is about 30,000 years. He has written a perfect article. He published it 2 years ago in the Archaeological Magazine. And I read this article. I mean, everything is done per book, the way it should be. All the scientific methodology was there. However, archaeologists from United Kingdom and the United States attacked the magazine, not his method or his arguments, but the magazine or scientific journal that published that article. So they had to backed up. They retrieved the article, but still, because I was there a couple of times and I did confirm that these are really pyramids. They have nice orientation to the cardinal points. It's truncated pyramid. It's artificial construction material. We are talking about the shaped volcanic stone blocks. So Indonesia is another amazing country. When it comes to Africa, of course, we have pyramids in Egypt, not 118 as non-scientific sites like Wikipedia, Encyclopedia Britannica, Smithsonian, or National Geographic claim, but 155. I know that because I have visited and investigated all of them. 155 pyramids in Egypt. And then we have 224 Nubian pyramids in northern Sudan. Island of Mauritius in the middle of the Indian Ocean. 7-step pyramids made from the volcanic stones. I've calculated about 20,000 tons of shaped volcanic material was needed to build this complex. And then on the other side of the African continent, Canary Islands, 104 pyramids. Now, in Spanish scientific community, they're saying these are not pyramids. It's so obvious that they are pyramidal structures. Why they are saying that? Because those structures were built by civilization known under the name Guanchi. Guanchi, they are probably descendants of the Atlanteans, and they were building stone temples, pyramids, irrigation channels, roads, and so on. So when the Spaniards came there in the 15th and the 16th century, sailing to the west towards America, the Canary Islands were the first stop. What they did within a few decades, they completely wiped off all the male population of the islands. There are like 4 inhabited islands over there. And now they are saying that these are not pyramids, that those were savages, barbaric people who were not able to build those pyramids or stone temples or irrigation channels. So basically, they falsified the history. But the pyramids are there, most of them unfortunately destroyed. But there is an anthropological park, as they call it, with dozen pyramids. Now, when you go to the South American continent, the biggest number is in Peru, more than 300 pyramids. For example, in Trujillo, beautiful, the largest pyramid on the South American continent. It's called Pyramid of the Sun, a cross pyramid of the moon. Each one has more than 150 million bricks while they were constructed. In Bolivia, several beautiful pyramids, for example, Acapena Pyramid, which was built using the granite blocks, Umapumku, and so on. What's not investigated are pyramids in Brazil, Amazon. There are several sites looking from satellite. They're obviously pyramidal in shape. Now, going to Central America, my PhD was about the Mayan pyramids, and the Mayans, they built pyramids in what we call today countries of Mexico, Guatemala, Honduras, El Salvador, and Belize. Most of them, majority of them in Guatemala and Mexico. But to give you an idea how many of pyramids are there, the tiny Belize, former British Honduras, they had 1,000 Mayan cities, towns, and villages, and every one of them would have several pyramids. So, my projection is that way over 100,000 pyramids were built by the Mayan civilization, and 97% of them still covered by soil and vegetation. Actually, they are in the jungle. For example, the biggest Mayan pyramid is in El Mirador, which is in northern Guatemala, 74 meters in height, completely covered by forest. And then going north to Northern America, pyramids in the US, well, they never taught us about those pyramids, but only in the southwestern corner of the state of Illinois, Cahokia National Park has 120 remaining pyramidal structures. Today they are covered by soil and the grass, but they are obviously either step pyramid or four-sided pyramid. The biggest one, which is called Monk's Mound. Monk's Mound, Americans call them mounds, not the pyramids, but they are pyramidal in shape. Now, Monk's Mound, when it comes to the surface, it is 11% larger than the surface of the Great Pyramid of Egypt. 11% larger. In order to build that structure, and they were using sandstone blocks, pebbles, rocks, sand, and they completed the structure. They cut the squares of soil and the grass, turn it upside down, and they covered the structure. So in order to build this one, they needed an equivalent of 122,000 trucks with the construction material. 122,000 20-ton trucks in order to build the whole complex. 120 today, probably more than 250 originally. They needed millions of truckloads of construction material. And finally, Europe. In Europe, we have 3 pyramids in the village of Valencia to the north of Valladolid. Unfortunately, one of them has been destroyed 15 years ago. and 2 are remaining, but it's a church property, so you cannot really go there and do any archaeological excavation. But interestingly enough, the height is 74 meters, and there's the height of the Great Pyramid in Teotihuacan, the Sun Pyramid, 74 meters. And it's exactly 2 times lower than the Great Pyramid of Egypt. So, Europe, 16 more pyramids in ancient Greek territory before the ancient Greek civilization, and in Italy, we have 43 pyramids on the island of Sicily and 1 pyramid in Sardinia. Now, when it comes to the Australian continent, of course, we did have a pyramid. Its eastern coast, it was known under the name Gympie Pyramid. Actually, it was not a structure built from bottom up, but it was shaped hill, 4 triangular faces, a lot of support walls, like dry walls on the top. There are several megalithic blocks, like menhirs, standing upright, and then 4 more for 4 cardinal points. When I was there 5-6 years ago, it was still there, and then I heard the news that the Australian government wanted to destroy it and run the highway just exactly through the place where the pyramid was located, and that was, outraged. Unfortunately, 2.5 years ago, this pyramid was destroyed. But the purpose of this little review is to show that the world of the ancient times was the world of pyramids.
It's extraordinary that the entire world is covered in these structures. And so there's a few things going on here. I would encourage our viewers to go back and listen to the original introduction video to interview that we did last edition with Dr. Samir, because it will give you a wonderful overview and touch on some other areas that we won't quite cover in this interview today. But to come back, we've got a few things going on here. We've got pyramids that exist in every continent, all over the world. Suspected in Antarctica, there's been discussion of that for many, many, many years. There is the fact that we have a narrative that is created and proffered through the institutions that govern the world currently, and not just currently, but from it. Let's take the Canary Islands for a moment. There's been civilizations that are wiped out, called savages. Same in Australia. In every continent, just about, that I'm aware of, and that's been going on for a long time. Not just in the last few hundred years like in Australia, but for thousands of years across the world. And you also mentioned Atlantis, descendants of Atlantis. So, number one, why do you believe that the pyramid building was prolific across the world by ancient civilizations? And number two, taking into account those factors that I've raised, what do you believe is in the bigger picture there?
Now, according to the official science, the pyramids that I mentioned, if they mention some of them, they are saying, well, the Mayan pyramids, they belong to Maya. Chinese pyramids belong to the ancient Chinese civilization. Egyptians, it's pharaonic times, and so on and so forth. Well, my classification is a little bit different. What I've learned is that the pyramid is the most powerful geometrical shape when it comes to the energies. They are energy amplifiers. And then if you have fulfilled certain criteria, the pyramids is getting stronger and stronger energy machines. What are those criteria? Number one is geometry. So we have regular four-sided pyramid. Number two is the side orientation towards the cardinal points, east, west, north, and south. Number three, artificial construction material. The older the material, harder the blocks, the better. For example, it can be granite, like in Egypt, Mexico, or China. It can be sandstone, like in Mexico, China. It can be concrete with a lot of quartz crystal, like in Bosnia. Even in Peru, what they were using the adobe bricks with the sand. It's like sandstone with the sand, with the clay, with the water, and so on. So artificial construction material. The next one is water. Water is necessary for pyramid to work. Why? Water moves, you have kinetic energy, and then it starts all other processes. The next one is quartz crystal. Why quartz crystal? Because it amplifies the energy and it transforms the energy from one form, usually electromagnetism, to another one, ultrasound. So we have ley lines. If you build the pyramid above the ley lines, you amplify that energy also. You have volcanic lines and you have some other criteria. So my conclusion was more criteria you fulfill, you are getting stronger energy machines. And this is exactly the knowledge that the ancient builders had. So my classification is not going from one territory to another, from Mayan to China to whatever, Egypt or Spain. No, it is either the pyramids were built, the original, the biggest, the most superior, as the energy machines, or the replicas where later people did not really know the true purpose of pyramids. So if you ask me what is common for all of them is it is the knowledge about the pyramids that can be used as the energy amplifiers, and then they can use that energy for different purposes. Of course, when I mentioned the pyramids around the world, I did not mention, well, I just mentioned Antarctica once, but Antarctica, I was checking the continent, the seventh continent, and we have 5 good sites for the pyramids, and one of them is exceptional because it does have all 4 sides, all visible, well, covered by ice and the snow, but 4 triangular faces, 4 corners, and perfect orientation. It cannot be done naturally. I did not mention Alaska also, well, because right now what we have only the statement from the son of the US military given to the journalist. There is no way to independently verify if this black pyramid or whatever they call it does exist or not. We have some more, probably in Colombia, with one side exposed. But if I did not go there, then I wouldn't even mention them. But the point is, when you ask me how many countries, it is more than 30 countries. So it's not Egypt and Mexico alone, but it is more than 30 countries, probably 3,000 countries at least. So I would say that the new classification should be either the pyramids were used as the energy machines, very sophisticated machine with a lot of elements there, or it was just a smaller replica. Egypt is perfect example. Even Egyptologists admit that the oldest pyramids are the most superior, which they assign to the 3rd, 4th, 5th, and the 6th dynasty. So from the 3rd dynasty, you have Saqqara Step Pyramid, Pharaoh Djoser. From the 4th dynasty, you have Great Pyramid of Egypt, or Cheops, or Khufu. The second one is Khafren or Khafred. The third one is Mycerinus or Myceren. So those 3 at the Giza Plateau. Then from the 5th dynasty, we have pyramids in Abu Sir. From the 4th dynasty also, we have Sneferu. He was, between 3rd and the 4th dynasty. They are saying he built a bent pyramid in Dashur, wrong. He built a beautiful red pyramid in Dashur, wrong. He built step pyramid in Meidum, wrong. But if they are saying that the earlier dynasties were building such superior structures, and those that they came later, 12th and especially 18th and 19th dynasty, where the pyramids were built from the mud bricks, and today there is almost nothing out of those pyramids because they are long gone. So they are admitting anomaly. What they've been teaching us in schools is that before we were primitive cavemen, and then with the time we were becoming more intelligent, more advanced, more beautiful. Well, that's wrong also. The history of humanity is not linear. The history of humanity is a cycle after cycle after cycle. Civilizations would reach the peaks, and then the global catastrophes would happen, and then humanity that would go down less than 1%, those who would survive, they would start from the beginning and again, reaching the peaks, disappearing. Just in the last 100,000 years, we've been having at least 5 such cycluses. So you see how the pyramids are actually opening up a lot of questions about the true history of humanity.
Yes, indeed. And there is the concept of the yugas. You'd be familiar with that? Yeah.
Yes.
So
now we are talking millions of years over there.
yeah, and hundreds of thousands, and for each section. And we're in Kali Yuga now. So
Yes.
Kali Yuga is the the dark age, if you will, of the cycle. Well, we can tell that by looking around, can't we? But anyway, um, you know, as you say, it does. It opens up enormous amounts of questions, and we did touch on that a little bit in our introduction interview about the origins of humanity. The truth of that, which is, kept squished down for it's not even for fear. It's a control paradigm, as far as I can see. That we were the product of genetic manipulation, and that ties us back into some of the Atlantean stories and things such as that. Would you like to share a little bit about your knowledge on that front? That would be great.
Yes, gladly. When we were discussing this episode today, they said, okay, why the mainstream science is resisting the idea that we did have advanced societies in the past? Well, I think it is controlled by elite. And this is what I think why. Right now they're telling us our human history is about 5,000-6,000 years old. Basically, they're saying the first civilizations were Sumerians, about 6,000 years back, and then after them we have Babylon, Akkad, Assyria, Hittite, ancient Egypt, China, and India, about 5,000 years. Of course, it's wrong. Just 50 years back, Encyclopedia Britannica claimed that Sumerians are only 3,500. And 30 years ago, they said it's about 5,000. Now they're saying about 6,000. And that's wrong also. We know that Sumerian king list, which is basically a huge stele. No, it's the stone plate with the carved names and dates of all the Sumerian rulers. It takes us back for 233,000 years. And the first rulers that were called gods with a small g, they were ruling Sumeria for, in average, 30,000 years. Alulim, 36,000 years. Al-Ajjar, 28,800 years. It has been like that for 10 generations of rulers until approximately 35,000 years back. And then we have the second generation of rulers. They are called lesser gods. And they would rule Sumeria for 1,000 years each. And then after that, 7,000 years back, we have children of God. Now, this is Sumeria. If you go to the neighboring Egypt, we have similar story. There is a papyrus which is held in the Egyptian Museum in Turin, Italy. Before it was, when you enter it, just to your left, a huge, like a glass box. Everybody could see that. Now they are basically hiding it. Once they did remodeling a few months back because they had 200 years. They put it on the fourth floor all the way in the back. Basically, that artifact is telling us about the rulers in ancient Egypt. And the Turin King list has 11 columns with the names and dates when they ruled. 3 eras. The first one, gods. The second one, demi or semi-gods and spiritual kings. The third one, sons of gods. Now, sons of gods from 5,000 years back, these are pharaohs as we know them. The first dynasty, second, third, fourth, all the way up to 19th dynasty. And some of those rulers, they would rule Egypt for 3 years, or 7 years, or 10 years, or 20 years. And if they got lucky, like Ramesses II, 67 years. So these are sons of gods. And that's exactly how those rulers would call themselves. The name Pharaoh, it came much later during the ancient Greek Pharaonic dynasty, Ptolemaic dynasty. Now, the second phase, before that third one, were demigods. And they would rule Egypt 200 or 300 years each. And before that, the first era of gods. Again, with a small g. Why? Because there are many of them. And those gods would rule Egypt 1,000 years each. And guess what? These periods from 40, 30,000 years back match exactly the period like the Sumerian rulers, a little bit to the east. So we did have intelligent beings at that time who were able to live 1,000 years. And when we think about the major structures, like the pyramids at the Giza Plateau, like the biggest temples and obelisks in Luxor, or temples in Abydos and Dendera, when we see those blocks, and when we think who are really capable of designing, shaping, transporting, and then installing, obviously, not the pharaonic times, soft copper tools, and primitive slave labor. We need to go back for tens of thousands of years. Or more concretely, in this particular document, Turin King list, those 2 eras were called era during the Venerable Shemsu Hor and before Venerable Shemsu Hor, and we are going back to the first gods 43,000 years before present. Now, you see how big a difference, how big a gap is between what the official science is saying, 5,000, 6,000 years, and then here we have tens of thousands of years, and the ancient Sumerians, hundreds of thousands of years. Human history is much, much more complicated and really much more interesting than what they are telling us in schools. Sometimes it is that people don't know. I understand that. But the main reason is elites want to keep us in this infantile stage. Because if we are just a few thousand years old, it means we are babies. We are infantile. And then babies, they need supervision. And who are the supervisors? Well, political elites, religious elites, corporate elites, financial elites, media moguls, and so on. So that's how they justify their existence. If it is common knowledge to every one of us, hey, there are so many different civilizations, people then they would be asking questions. Okay, what was their technological level? What they were able to do? What was their spirituality? Did they believe God? Did they have some spiritual senses activated and developed? And once you start asking those questions, then you realize that it's not everything about the material world and our five physical senses. But what is really beyond that is a spiritual aspect of our life. It is our soul, which is immortal. And if your soul is free, no limits, and immortal, then the fear disappears in this daily life. And then the elites are not able to control us and manipulate us like before. So, see, really, the story about the pyramids and ancient history is so important for them. And the common people do not understand that. But once we educate ourselves, and those answers we will not find in AI, which is also fully controlled, like Wikipedia or our educational system. We need to go deep, to dig, to look for the answers, to find the forgotten literature, and to talk to a handful of people who are really good researchers.
Such as yourself, thank heavens you're here. So, you touched on the Indonesian pyramid Gudang in Gudang Padang. Is that correct? Gudang Padang? I've said
Gunung Padang. Gunung
Nung,
Padang.
Nung Padang. Sorry, thank you.
Gunung Padang means hill of light. Hill of light.
Hill of Light. How beautiful. And then we've got the Bosnian Pyramid of the Sun, and they're a similar age. Yes, a couple of,
Exactly.
yeah.
You are completely right. In my review, I basically did not mention the one that is most important for me and globally extremely significant, and it is the Bosnian Pyramid Complex. Of course, we're going to be talking more about it in next episodes, but now just a few words. 20 years back, 2005, I'm coming to the Bosnian town of Visoko in central Bosnia and Herzegovina for the first time to visit the local museum. But besides the museum, I see this big hill. Everybody call it natural hill because it's covered by forest and soil. But I was looking at geometry, four sides, four triangular faces, four corners. And during our excavation, we've done a lot of radiocarbon dating, and we ended up with 30,000 years as the age of the Bosnian Pyramid of the Sun. So now we can see that the Bosnian Pyramid Complex, like some others, they belong to some of the previous cycluses. And the important age, the thresholds, 12,000 years ago, the end of the last ice age, the end of the Paleolithic times. Before that, 18,500. Before that, 32,000 years. That was the time when the solar flames were so strong, they were burning the surface of the planet, and 99% of people were gone, and animals and so on. Then 54,000 years back, now that was something unnatural. Now, in places like Mohenjo-Daro or Harappa, which is in today's Pakistan and India, big civilization, in the valley of Indus River. Now, over there, at one point, the temperature of more than 1200 degrees was generated. It can be done only through the thermal nuclear war, 54,000 years back. And then 74,000 years ago, we had, of course, the big volcanic eruption of the volcano in Indonesia. So we have five major global catastrophes that would mark the end of one cycle and the beginning of the next one. And the Bosnian pyramids, obviously, they belong not the previous, but the one before. The pyramids in Indonesia, also one before. Egyptian pyramids, also. But some other sites, like megalithic sites in eastern Peru, which is well known under the name Machu Picchu, is probably 54,000 years old. And then we have some other places that are kind of mysterious for me. For example, there is a place in Central Asia called Gobi Desert. It seems that there was a civilization there which was destroyed. So the only thing that was remained, it is the sand, desert sand. So our planet has so much to tell us. Our problem is we don't dig deep enough. For example, most of the rulers in ancient Sumeria and Mesopotamia and Babylon, they've been, uh, during the digging process, they've been proven that they existed, that they ruled, 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 years back. But if they would be digging deeper and deeper, they would go deeper in time, 7, 8, 12, 15,000 years. It's just that I guess archaeology does not have interest. We don't have good archaeologists who are curious, who wants to go deeper. And if they find something like, for example, we had this archaeology professor. She was from New York University there. She was working on the Mayan pyramids in Belize, and she found some organic material within the structures, and she published. And just with that little radiocarbon dating, she went deep in the past for 3,000 years. What happened? Next thing she knew, she was fired from her job. So,
Wow.
and then she was not able to publish anything, and her academic career was over. So basically, this feeling of fear present everywhere in academia and the educational system, political or corporate world. It's everywhere. People fear to say what they see, and archaeologists especially, they don't want to say because they want to keep their reputation, or they want to keep their job, or they want to keep the money so they can pay the mortgage or commercial loans.
Which we,
Bad.
which brings us back to the point you started on about having your own businesses, generating the finances to start the Bosnian Pyramid Park, which people can access for free. Isn't that correct?
Yes, well, since when I started, of course, pyramids in Europe, that was a big no-no for, mainstream science. They attacked me from the very beginning. And the government, they realized that our project has become very popular among the common people, normal people, good intentional people. And so they said, okay, we're going to give you permissions because you are registered, or your foundation is registered for archaeological scientific research and archaeological tourism. But because of the pressure coming from historians, geologists, museums, archaeologists from Bosnia and from abroad, we won't be able to extend you any financial help, any marketing help, any organizational help, and so on. But I said, that's fine. As long as I have permission to dig, we're going to take care of everything else. So eventually we started charging the, entrance fee for the tunnels, for the Bosnian Pyramid of the Sun, for the organization, for the big groups that are coming and enjoy, visiting all the sites that we've been working on. Then we started with the beautiful park, which was a swamp, and now it's the most beautiful park in Europe, place where anybody can come. And yes, entrance to the park is for free. Parking lots that we maintain, they are for free. All our festivities, concerts, all for free. So it's, we want to show people that we are not there because of the money, but, paying the entrance fees for the tunnels, buying some souvenirs, it helps us to keep going, to do the maintenance and so on. So we are the living proof that you don't have to have government money to start something. But if you're smart enough, if you are creative enough, if you're good intentional, people will recognize that and they're going to give you their support. They're going to come and they're going to keep coming back because they love what they saw. So, there are some other ways. That's the point. So even self-financing is possible.
There's so much to discuss, but we've only got a few minutes left in this in our time together today. So, final question to give us a lead into our next conversation. Given the way things are in the mainstream with archaeologists and their work and the restrictions and limitations, do you think then that mainstream science is able to really grasp the potentiality of what pyramids are, what they can do, and how they can operate together across the planet?
Yeah, that's a good question. You see, when we use the terms like mainstream science or official science, it is not like there are one, two, or five institutions with 20 or 50 scientists who hold all the positions. It's nothing like that. Because we have hundreds and hundreds of thousands of scientists. I mean, just in the world of archaeology, Faculty of Archaeology at the University of Cairo has 5,000 students. So in 5 years, we have 5,000 more Egyptologists and archaeologists. So imagine how many hundreds of thousands of them we have around the planet. So majority of them, we can say, well, it's mainstream, but even those people, they think what's going on. And most of them, started doubting what they've been told about the pyramids and the pharaohs and the thousands of slaves and all those, fairy tales. Uh, but since pyramids, they do not belong to the archaeology and history only. As a matter of fact, it's just a small percentage. If they are energy machines, it is physicists and engineers who are there to understand how they function. Now, good thing about physicists, nuclear physicists, quantum physicists, electrical engineers, sound engineers, telecommunication engineers, is that they have scientific instruments. They are real scientists. They are not guessing. They found piece ceramic, or it can be 2,000 or 3,000. Maybe it is Phoenicians, maybe it's ancient Romans. It's a guessing work. The true science is I got scientific instrument, I measure. Another guy comes, he measures independently, and another one comes, he measures independently. If you have 3 or 5 of them, and they all got the same results, it is called a scientific verification. So, good thing about those other scientists is that they can bring a lot of new knowledge about the pyramids. And that's exactly what we've been doing at the Bosnian Pyramid Complex, opening this site for the interdisciplinary scientific approach. Many sciences, classical, like archaeology, Egyptology, history, biology, paleontology, plus high tech. So we have geophysics, we have satellite, we have geothermal, we have georadar, plus different forms of dating, radiocarbon, luminescence, uranium, thorium. This is all that we performed in Bosnia, plus engineers, physicists, plus medical doctors, plus spiritual scientists, people who are sensitive enough, who can feel what other people cannot, who can feel what our scientific instruments cannot record. So once you put everything together, people will realize, hey, this is not just the archaeology, it's much more than that. Once you add the construction, civil engineering, how it was built, the tools, the precision, geodesy, then you can understand the pyramids. Archaeologists and Egyptologists themselves will never be able to do that. And that's the reason why after 200 years of Egyptology, they still don't know answers to basic questions. Who really built Egyptian pyramids? The biggest, the most superior? When it happened? How did it happen? And what was the purpose? And I will end with that. Our friends from Italy, Filippo, Corrado, and Armando, who are doing SAR tomography, they were scanning below the pyramids, the Giza Plateau, especially below the Khafre Pyramid. Once they realized that we have huge structure underneath, under the ground, you have like 560 meters, those 8 columns. Below that, we have some chambers, 80 by 80 meters, and so on and so forth. It tells us that those pyramids that are so impressive, when you go to the Giza Plateau, you look at the Great Pyramid of Egypt, it's wow, you are stunned. But it seems that wow is just the tip of the iceberg. So we need to say goodbye to those fairy tales about the pharaohs and the princesses and the slaves. We go back for tens of thousands of years So things are just got so much more interesting than before.
Fascinating, extraordinary, exciting, and I'm so grateful that you've spent and dedicated your entire life to this inquiry and to bringing these wisdoms and and opening the door for so many more to come in the hundreds of years to come as we go and more. What a phenomenal joy to have you with us again, and thank you so much. I'm looking forward to our next interview, in which we will go deeper into the Bosnian Pyramid Complex, and we will have an amazing time in discussing all about that and about the multidisciplinary approach that you're working with there, all of those people, and how that's actually rolling out in your your amazing microcosm of a world there.
Yes, you are completely right. I think that will be amazing next episode because we're gonna go deep with the biggest and the oldest pyramids of all.
Yay! We'll see you for the next one. Thank you so much, Dr. Samir Osmanagich. See you next time.
Thank you.